Hey guys, welcome back to another episode with the Mountain Bike Shed. We are here with the Intense Primer 275 Expert. So I've already trued the wheels up, got tubeless sealant in, one installed, but I figured I'd wait for you guys to run through the rest of this bike. I went through the internet, I really didn't see any other videos that I liked, so I figured this would be a good opportunity for us to run through them. This is the red and white version, which I think is stunning. The Primer 275, I owned this bike a few years back. This is a 2023 Intense Primer 275. It's got the GX build on it. Listed weight on this bike comes in at 32 pounds. As you can see, that white is beautiful. It's got a Fox 36 performance on it. This is the Expert build. E13 wheels. I've got a scale here. We'll weigh this guy. This is size large. My customer is 6'1". Here in St. Louis in Missouri, we've got a lot of really tight single track, super techie stuff. So he opted for the Primer instead of the Tracer from Intense. Tracer is going to be a bit longer bike with a little bit more travel. This customer does like to hit some of the new jumps here in the area, so he picked up this bike. Still wanted something nimble. Excuse me, but something a little bit more than the hardtail he's coming from. So pretty cool bike. Like I said, I owned a 275 for a while. That was back in 2020, 2021, I guess 2020 model. It was great, except for it came with a Fox 34 at the time. So they've kind of beefed things up a little bit here in 2023 and 2022 as well. Really cool Fox 36 performance. A Floatex back on the rear. Like I said, a little bit shorter bike. So interestingly enough, if you go on their website, on the diagram, it'll tell you that this bike's got a 475 reach. I don't believe that to be true. If we look here, it is 475. So yeah, on, I don't know. It depends on where they pull it from. Not exactly sure. So they say 475, and they also say that the reach on it is 457 if you go down in the specs. And if I'm looking here, I'd have to say the reach on it's at least 475, if not much more. Because, yeah, that's crazy. I don't know where these numbers come from, to be honest with you. And that's one thing, like if you're shopping bikes and comparing all these numbers online, I see customers do it a lot. We like to geek out on the numbers. That's a fun part about mountain biking. But it's all about feel. So go to your local bike shop, ride some of these bikes around, and get a feel for the bikes. One thing I've learned, some brands are a little bit more accurate with their geometry numbers, but a lot of them aren't. So, you know, they don't want to give away the special sauce. They don't want other brands being able to copy and find out what works for the bike. So they will kind of fudge those numbers a little bit. But you can see on this guide, I love the red and white. White's one of my favorite contrasting colors. I'm more of a black and white or a gray and red and white kind of guy, but still pretty cool. All Intense bikes are going to come with a couple bottles of sealant for you. It's E13 sealant. These E13 wheels are pretty light. We'll get this guy weighed up here real quick. Of course, the camera switches away at that time. We'll weigh this guy up. It's with the GX cassette on it. 5 pounds, 4 ounces, or 2.51 kilograms. So And that's with tire, tube, and sealant. You're going to get spacers in all your bikes. The spacers are kind of nice to hold on to, so if you're building your bike at home, throw those in your bag of goodies. Intense gives you a whole bag of goodies for your bike with all your manuals and everything. Something to keep in mind when you are, after you get this bike, when you build the bike, we true all the wheels first. So if you're just at home and you get an Intense bike at home, these wheels aren't trued. So you need to get those into a shop, have the wheels true, or you're going to start doing damage pretty immediately to your bike. And then also we need to hit torque specs on all of these guys. So Intense is going to include a torque wrench and a shock pump for you. Go ahead and get that torque wrench out and make sure the torque specs are all going to be correct on your suspension especially. So that's going to be really huge. I worry a little bit less on the cockpit. This got a set of aluminum bars, so not a huge deal there. But we do need to watch it on the suspension. And then after you get a ride or two in, after you get your first ride in, go back and recheck that your torque specs are all going to be correct here. I've seen bikes come into the shop with pivot bolts sliding out of the way. I mean, you really got to watch that kind of stuff. I'm going to put our pedals on first. This customer is opting for a set of Crank Brothers stamps, red to match the bike, of course. Smart choice. I think we can all agree with that. And we're going to get these guys on. So again, this is a really fun, Intense classifies this as their trail bike. It's 150 mil treble on the front, 140 on the rear. It's a very aggressive trail bike. I appear to only have one pedal. Let me go run and grab that real quick, guys. We're going to put grease on the threads of our pedals, and we're going to use pedal washers. You'll know that you need pedal washers on your bike because you'll see your cranks are a little bit inset here. So if you see that little bit of an inset, we need to make sure we're using pedal washers to keep everything nice. Intense was kind enough to include those with the bicycle as well. But yeah, they give you a torque wrench for a reason. Really be using that. Really be checking that. The harder you ride, if you go out and you do jumps or anything fun and exciting, then we need to be checking our torque specs on a bike. What did I grab even? Pedals should be around 30 to 35 Newton meters. So if you're like, well, I don't know what all the torque specs are supposed to be on my bike. The suspension pivots are all going to say I'm on there. That's helpful. And then if not, you can go to Intense's website, go to the support tab, follow through to find your bike. And when you do find it, you can pull it up. You'll have a full parts list blown up from Intense, which is very nice. It'll also give you the torque specs for everything. That'll be helpful. And the pedals are an 8 mil in the back. And again, I want to go 30, 35 Newton meters. When I tighten pedals, pedals are going to have a left and a right. So we just want to make sure we are putting them on correctly. You can always look at the ramps of the threads. They'll go up towards the direction you're supposed to tighten it. So on a regular right-handed threaded pedal, you'll see the threads kind of go up to the right if you're looking with the bolt pointing up and the pedal itself pointing down. You'll always tighten towards the front of the bicycle and you'll loosen towards the rear of the bike. The right side of the bike is right-hand threaded, the left side is left-hand threaded. But again, I'm just tightening towards the front of the bike and I'm going 32 Newton meters on my pedals. Something else to keep in mind, when you are using your torque wrench, these need to be reset. Now, when you reset them, you're not going to want to reset it down as far as it goes. We want to try to preserve the life of the spring of your torque wrench, so you're going to actually reset it down to the lowest measurement. So it's going to be a little bit different on the torque wrenches you guys got in your kit. I'm not going to use the customers just because it's not really necessary, but keep that in mind. Don't just throw it back. You get this nice case from Intense. Read the directions on your new $5,000 bike. You know how to use all this stuff, but reset your torque wrench down, but you get this nice kit here for torquing everything down. And then we'll need to use a shock pump here too. You can see things aren't traveled out there. So something to keep in mind. Get a water bottle cage in here. We get our guide tool, all very nice stuff from Intense. You've got everything to work on your bike and get it right, so use it. All right, I'm going to adjust this brake real quick because that will bother me. Something else to keep in mind, if you've got a nice set of Allens, whether it's Park Tool or Pedros, or I believe this is a Toe Peak tool here, what we want to do is anytime we're breaking a bolt free, use the squared off end. And then when you're just spinning, you can use this round end. If you use this round end, especially on a 5 mil under any torque, you're just going to round it out, or your smaller Allens as well. So keep that in mind. When I'm resetting a brake, I'll do a light squeeze. I'll hold the brake in, and as I'm holding the brake in, I'll snug down my brake caliper. That seemed to line it up perfect for me. So I'll release, re-grab, snug again. Good. On this, we're probably looking for something close to between 6 and 8 Newton meters. I've got a good feel for it because I do this professionally, but this is definitely a place where it'd be a good idea to bust out your torque wrench. Look up the torque specs for the brake model that you have. They might be different depending on the model, but again, kind of 6 to 8 is pretty safe. Maybe 8 to 10. This is a 5 mil, so a lot of times you'll know what your torque spec needs to be loosely based on what size Allen you're using. So typically you're not going to go over 10 to 12 Newton meters on a 5 mil. That's the high side. Most of your 5 mil bolts are probably going to be 6 to 8. So keep that in mind. This brake just wants to keep rubbing. So we'll go back in here. Don't touch your rotors ever. This is a 275 Expert. It's going to come with the Shimano 6100 4-piston hydraulic disc brakes. They're really solid. I like in 2023 the lever feel is new. It's great. It's got a good kind of hook to it. That's pretty good. All right, now when adjusting our drivetrain, I forget we're dealing with SRAM, so it's going to be a 3 mil to make all of our adjustments on. And as you guys can see here, we're going to have a high and a low limit screw on these Eagle drivetrains. The high, so the thing when you're in your smallest gear, is going to be the adjustment that's closest to the chainring. And I'm going to dial that in until it jumps up, and I'm going to slowly back it off one flat at a time until it stops making noise. So these wrenches have a, different flats on them. That's how I measure how I make adjustments on a bike. So I dialed that limit screw as tight as possible. My B screw is going to be off a little bit. So once I almost get to the top, I stop here. I stop here. I stop the wheel from spinning just in case if my low limit screw is really far off. I don't want to shift into the wheel at high speed. So my low limit screw, so when I'm in this biggest cog, it's going to be the adjustment screw that's farthest outside or closest towards me. This one actually seems to be adjusted pretty perfect. So then I'm going to drop down one cog. Everything seems to be riding a little bit weird, so I'm going to bust out my B screw adjustment tool. Got this bike set up weird so you guys can see it. It's not helping me out any. Bring that B screw out a little bit. That should have cleaned things up for us. And everything's working perfect there. So yeah, I do the high limit screw, and I stop before I get to my last cog, then I jump up after the wheel stop, do my low limit screw, and then I jump back down on these SRAM Eagle drivetrains, and I do my B screw, and then typically perfectly adjusted from that point. Now I feel like my hanger is a little bit bent here. So after we get done with the video, I'll probably jump back to that. I do want to get a weight on this bike real quick for you guys. I love 27.5s. It's my bike of choice at 6 foot. I end up riding a medium 27.5 bike. I like having the little bit shorter reach. Makes the bike kind of snap around more. This has got like 430 mil chain stays. I lost my phone already. Here we go. So the chain stays on this guy, 432 millimeters. So super short. It's like 443 on a normal primer 2.9. So that's something to keep in mind. And the other thing we need to do is get our shock adjusted proper. I don't know my rider weight, but you can find that in the support manual or in the sports section on Tense's website. Again, they're going to go over the suspension, how they recommend setting everything up for each rider specifically. You're going to get that shock pump with your Intense kit, which is very handy. We're going to take off our adjustment knob here, and it looks like we're kind of set in the middle as far as our rebound control goes on the rear shock. The Intense pump is actually really nice. I prefer to use the toe peak zero loss here at the shop. I want to be really dialed on where we're at. Now, I did not record rider weight for this bike, so I won't know exactly where we need to be, but I'll get us close. So I normally kind of err on any bike. I'm going to go rider weight in PSI on the rear. And then I'm going to look up for the individual manufacturer and see what they recommend. And then I'm going to put my rider on the bike and also at that time be able to see kind of where we should be. You know, here in St. Louis, again, we've got a little bit more cross-country trails. So I like to set up people a little bit stiffer. We're kind of pedally, nothing too crazy, nothing too fast. If you're jumping and stuff, probably be good to set it up a little bit stiffer as well. So I find that just to be a really good kind of midway to do for my customers. On the fork leg, it's going to say what you should be. Now I'm going to assume at 6'1", my rider's going to be somewhere around 200 pounds. So I'm going to go down to my scale here, and let's see, up to 210, 95 PSI. So I don't think he's over 210. I'm just going to put him right at 95. There's no air in this fork when it comes. It's going to look like you got a short travel bike when these bikes first come. So you're going to have a lot of work to do. Suspension setup can be a lot of personal preference. You want to be careful though. If you have your suspension set up too stiff, then you're just going to bounce all over the trail. The bike's really not going to, and the suspension's not going to be able to do the job it's supposed to. So don't just always set up too stiff. You know, again, for Missouri, for our local trails here, that seems to really work. But if you're doing faster descents down like Big Mountain and stuff like that, then you really want probably a softer suspension so it can actually absorb some of those, have a little bit more small bump compliance, things along those lines. Again, jumping, bigger hits, it'd be nicer to have a little bit stiffer suspension. But again, you don't want to overdo that and not allow the fork to actually do its job. So again, I'm going to jump back and do torque specs. I'll wrap up this video here. I haven't ridden these Kenda tires at all. The E13 rims aren't terrible, you know, just in the sake of being fully transparent and honest with you guys. E13 is not my favorite set of rims or hubs. They are really lightweight, but in order to get lightweight, they're not quite as strong as something, you know, I'm a big fan of Stan's, the Spank 350s, just anything that's going to be super durable. Your wheels are taking a lot of abuse out there, and it can be an expensive and time-consuming fix. So I tried to make sure my customers are on the strongest wheel set possible. So we've already got this set up tubeless. It's in a size large. Let's see, let's get this on the scale. We're going to put the dropper up. Typically, you do not want to hang your bike by the dropper. I'm just going to do it briefly here. I'm going to look and make sure I'm not doing any damage to anything. So yeah, we're right at 32 pounds, 10 ounces in a size large with sealant and everything else stock. So that is it, guys. These Intense bikes are pretty amazing. As you can see, really beautiful bikes. You get a lot of bike for your money. Intense, definitely the heritage of them. There's a lot of history to stand behind. Jeff Staber, who designs these bikes and is responsible for the company, is still there every day working on prototypes hand in hand. He's not just some rich dude that bought into the company. That being said, Ryan Dungey and some other motocross guys have stepped in. So Intense has got obviously their moto heritage. That's where Staber came from originally. But by bringing those moto guys in, we're seeing them bring in some of the positives from the moto world. Whether that's taking care of dealers when we perform warranty work, which is unheard of in the bike industry, very cool of Intense to do. Whether it's, you know, just the ability to warranty parts directly through Intense, very nice to be able to do. Or, you know, you look at their e-bike, they got a fat tire on the rear, a bigger, skinnier tire on the front. So a lot of that kind of moto heritage bleeds its way in here. And I know we see it in the shop. Our guys that ride moto, our guys that do hair scrambles, those are the fastest guys out there. They just naturally can ride fast. They're very good at picking lines. Everything's in slow motion compared to the dirt bikes. So yeah, really gives a good opportunity for riders to showcase their skills, and you'll get an absolutely beautiful bike in this Intense 275. Great deals going on right now with Intense. So if you're watching this video, jump over to their website, put a bike in the cart and see what happens. I think this bike is right at like $3,600 right now. Normally this is like a $5,000 bike. So come check it out. Test ride one here at the shed. We've got some in stock. You can go to mtbshed.com. Bikes aren't always listed there, but you can go there. Give me a call, stop in. We can ship an Intense bike to you if you need. Glad to help you out. And yeah, I hope you guys jump on a primer. I think it's a perfect all-around bike. If you're just doing bike park and stuff, maybe you need to be on a primer, but if you're riding anywhere else other than super flat trails, then get on a primer. I love the 275. It's playful, it's fun, it does what you want when you want. Or the Primer 2.9 is just an absolute beast as far as speed goes. So depends on where your preferences are. Grab you a bike, have fun, enjoy.